Welcome, everyone, to our Resilient, Wild, and Unstoppable interview series. And I know that we didn't have any last week, and we're back on track again with more interviews coming. And today we get to interview Chris. Fabulous, amazing, lots of good information and good conversation to be had. So I really encourage you to connect and really collaborate with Chris and really check out the interview. And Chris, I am curious, what what has you stepping from that step of your therapy center to that next step of really that insightfulness of spirituality and business and life that you are journeying on.
That it's all intertwined, as you are aware. Um, but recently, the last couple of years, I've had a couple of major surgeries, um, and so I've had to step away from the centre for extended periods of time. And of course, you start thinking and going deep within and things like that. Um, so I got to the age where in the UK we reach our pensions. And I decided that I did not want to be in the same position as I was last year in 2026. And
Mhm.
I set that intention by actually telling the landlord of the building that I didn't want to be having the same conversation with him next year. And that seemed to set things in motion, because within about a week, one of my old friends had come forward to say, "You want to retire? Well, I'm actually looking for new premises." And I thought, this is getting a bit like it was when I first set up the place. You know, you say something and it sets off a chain of
Mhm.
events. And the easiest thing in the world would be to say, "Oh, this is getting daft now. Um, no, I don't want to be part of this." But the best thing to do is to say, "Well, let's see what happens. What if I say yes?" Which is what led me to set the place up in the first place. Um, but I said yes to Dave. He's um, a therapist educator. He's uh, a witch. Um, he does all sorts of things
Mhm.
in the sort of spiritual new age world, and we seem to click the minute we laid eyes on each other. It was a case of I met him in a conference, and I knew when I saw him that I was going to work closely with him in future. And I went up and told him, and he said, "I was just going to come and say the same to you." so, so it
Wow.
was, yeah. So yeah, these things happen. There's, but you have to be open to them, you know. So I'm stepping away because I think now, my time is better spent doing one-to-one mentorship with people rather than um, teaching classes or just even sitting behind a reception desk letting people into a centre.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot more to offer than sitting behind a reception desk. And I
Mhm.
love that what sounds like spiritual intervention
Oh
when
yeah,
when you are connecting with others on this unknown path that is really opening up for you. So, with your mentorship, what does that look like for others that connect with you in that mentorship?
well, I'm a trained mentor. I did mentorship training uh, over the years, well, over 20 years ago, and also um, about 3 years ago now, actually, topped it up. Uh, and the mentorship is actually quite structured. It's not coaching, it follows an actual structure. Um, in which it's a one-to-one basis. And obviously, things are, you hold your mentee accountable. You have notes you take notes of the meetings. It's like an actual business meeting. Um, and my role is to provide guidance, to provide angles for the mentee to look at, so they can do their research in their own time and work out what is best for them. I am not the source of all wisdom. I am just somebody who's already been down the path, and I have a few ideas that would help people. And then we meet again the next week or month, whenever it is. We go through what we said we did do the last week, and we take it from there.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's
awesome.
usually sort of a block of about 4 to 6 sessions in this structure. But if they want to carry on past that, that's fine.
Okay. You mentioned that you are kind of at that crossroads where you know what you are letting go of, you know where your next journey path is beginning, and that is starting to be uncovered. For others that are on that crossroads, what are some tips that you can offer as they try and figure out what that next step is?
Uh, Firstly, don't be impatient. I'm an Aries. My biggest problem is being impatient, and I, I just want to be off there doing something. But the universe's time is not our time. It takes a lot longer than that, and we have to um, try and fit in with it.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if you push things to happen, they don't happen the way you want them to. It's always better to wait for the next step to be revealed to you. I'm a tarot reader is one of my other things I do. And it's a bit like the hermit card, where you have the hermit standing at the top of a mountain. Um, and he's got a lantern with the star in, illuminating his next step.
Mm,
Um, but at some stage, you actually have to take that next step. So when you see it, you have to run with it, but it might not be what presents itself to you straight off. So patience is required. But you can also, there's nothing stopping you researching your options, because it gives you things to plan for. Planning is everything, but plans are nothing. It's a famous quote. You can research and look around. Is this for me? No, it's not. I've done that with a couple of things. And I've decided with one thing, it's another name for what I've been doing for donkey's years. I was a teacher to start with, and it's just another name for that. And with another thing, I decided, well, this is opening too big a can of worms for me. I think I'm going to pass on this one. Um, we will revisit it later more, when I've got worms together, if you like, and see what comes out of it.
yeah, I have to say patience is not my strong suit. I feel like
Uh,
I need to open a can of patience once in a while and consume
yeah, yeah.
it.
Well, the universe has a way of actually getting you to stop. And in my case, it was major surgery, which hasn't, and recovery's gone a lot slower than I wanted it to.
Mm,
So I've had to slow down, and I've had to do things around what I wanted to do, and basically give myself permission and time to heal. And that process has actually worked a lot better than just saying, "Oh, I'm just going to get up and do all these exercises and um, push things." I get reminded, if I try and push the physical recovery, that you don't do that. You have to wait until you've completed that bit, and you go on to the next bit.
yeah, absolutely. What What else do you want to share with our community that maybe I haven't asked the right question yet, and you know it's going to provide value for others listening to this interview or reading the Cliff Notes?
Um, I want to share with you what the process was when I set up the Amethyst Center.
Okay.
Um, because uh, and I say I manifested it because I did that without actually knowing how to manifest.
Oh,
It was just later when I went back and read the law of attraction and things like that that I thought, oh, I did that when I set up the center and I actually walked through the process. So I was, well, in 2012, I nearly died. I was had a bad reaction to a prescribed medication and was hospitalized and was told that if I didn't stop taking the tablets, I'd be dead in 3 weeks. So when I'd recovered from that, I sort of sat down and thought, right, I'm ready. What next? And what was next was the Amethyst Center. So
mm,
I had first things was that I invited it in. Um, so you remember Dave, who's the guy I'm handing over to at the centre, right? Well, he actually taught me advanced crystal healing, and I was sitting in the classroom in Birmingham, waiting for the class to start, and it was December, and he looked at me and said, "So, Chris, what are you going to do next year? What are your plans for next year?" And I said, "Oh, I don't make plans. Um, my body usually gives up on me, and I end up not doing them." And he said, "Well, let me ask you something else. What would you say that you'd do if you knew it would succeed?" And I said, "Oh, I'd have my own therapy centre." And the next thing I said was, "Where did that come from?" Because it was as if I'd opened my mouth and somebody's spoken through it. It wasn't me. It was not anywhere on my list of priorities.
wow.
It's not what I'd wanted to do before I died. Absolutely nothing. But instead of thinking to myself, oh, don't be so stupid, Chris, that was a daft thing to say, I thought, hmm, that's interesting. Let's run with this and see where it goes. And so you have to be open to the
Mhm.
process, to what comes, and allow it rather than put stuff in the way. So the next thing I did, um, just a few days later, I was actually on the street where the centre is. My bank was there, and I've been to the bank. So I was crossing the road to go back to where I parked the car, and I looked up and I noticed that there was a to let sign outside one of the buildings, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. It's in about the right place for the centre. I'll Google it. So I Googled it, and it was um, online. There was pictures inside. It wasn't through an estate agent. It was to contact the landlord directly. And I thought, well, this is a bit big for little old me, but I'm setting up a centre. I'm going to let stuff out, aren't I? So I contacted the landlord and he rang me and said, what do you want to do with the place? And I said, oh, well, I want to start a therapy centre there. And he said, well, so do I. And this is the point where my jaw bounced off the floor
Wow.
because I just thought, I don't believe what I'm hearing. Um, he said, I'm looking for somebody to work with to do this. So I went to see it, and it was in a bit of a ramshackle condition. It had been let to an accountant and hadn't had any money spent on it for 25 years. Um, and I guess he looked at it through sort of my eyes because I was saying, you know, this is promising, but there's a lot needs doing to it. And when you're a landlord, you don't always see things through your uh, uh, client's eyes, really. And so he renovated it under my instructions. and I managed to cash in a pension and got the money to put towards it. That came through 3 days before I was due to get the keys, so that was cutting it a bit fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but you can see it's you have to trust, and there were a lot of other things that went on that taught me the virtue of just trusting the process, being patient, and if you're doing what you're meant to do, it will come. Everything will come to you. You don't need to push too hard, and
Great.
I've proved that time and again with the centre.
Wow. Great reminders. Thank you for
Thank
all of
you.
that. It's like I needed to hear that.
Did you? Right, okay.
Yes, as there will probably be others that need to hear it also, because
Yeah,
sometimes as humans, we're on this journey, we're on this path, and we're like, all right, now what? What's next?
yeah,
Are we in the right place? Are we doing the right thing?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If you hold that idea in mind, then the next step comes. It's always the next step, never the next three or four or five. It's the next one. And you take that, and then the next one comes.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really
My
appreciate that.
pleasure. My pleasure.
So, with that, it is that time where we want to close out this interview, and I'm really appreciative of your time and your passion and your heart for what you've created, how you've created it, and that introduction to patience and spirituality, and really helping and serving others. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for opening up this opportunity. Yeah.